This broadcast is inappropriate for all ages right here on hashtag WeAreMovieClub. Salutations, I'm Cameron, and I am conversation ready. Today we're talking about Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm sorry, I apologize. That is a notes mistake. That was meant to say Iron Man 4. Because in reality, this is about half Spider-Man, half Iron Man, if I'm being completely fair about it. And I think part of the reaction that I got when I told someone this today, Frank, was that I don't remember him being in the movie that much. Now, granted, he was only there for a couple critical scenes in person or even via remote. Happy was around. And a lot of what the movie was Spider-Man dealing with his new suit. Because they rightfully, damn well should have, skipped the origin story. Didn't need to do it again. Didn't need to do it for a third time. Granted, it was referenced in the other two movies. Because this is the 6th Spider-Man movie. This is the 6th one where it's generally accepted as what people want out of a Spider-Man movie. Now, that said, it still wasn't everything everyone wanted out of a Spider-Man movie. It was just a fraction of what it could be. And we finally got to a point where we're happy with it. So we could still very easily do another Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland. He's a good enough actor. I was actually happy with Garfield as a Peter Parker. Granted, he was a little too cool for the role. Holland plays a better nerd. But what we're missing in this movie is fucking Spider-Man. He's there for a little while in his truest heart-of-heart forms. But I think at this point he's been Spider-Man for about like 6 months, and he's got his own little crappy suit that he started with in the comics. So there was a gentle nod to the comics. But what happens is that Tony shows up and drags him into the fucking Avengers, and he gets delusions of grandeur. In the comics, by the time he gets invited to be an Avenger, he's already been in, like, doing his Spider-Man thing for 10 years. He participated in Infinity Wars. He went through this whole clone saga thing. His DNA got changed, so like his web shooters became part of him. Spider-Man has a long history. Maybe not as long as Iron Man or Captain America, as he's still young in that sense of the word, like as far as seniority of character goes. But for comics, he's been around a while. So this ugly rebooted universe that they've created, where Iron Man's invented in 1999 or early 2000s, whatever you want to call it. And then they make Spider-Man even later. It doesn't work the same way, and they don't even like credit Spider-Man. My biggest problem with Spider-Man movies, and I'll probably get to them eventually, the other ones, and I'll bitch about it then, is that they don't Peter Parker right. Peter Parker was a boy genius. He invented his web fluid solution, which they did show in this movie. I'm gonna recognize that. And he got a lot of places on his own merit, his own toughness, his great morality. The part of the reason why they do the tragic backstory of losing a relative like that, the reason Batman does it, the reason Superman does it, is because it drives them as people. It sets their morality good, and they fight the good fight through sacrifice and hard work and working on the street level. And that's what Spider-Man is all about. He's a street level hero. It doesn't matter how big or popular he is. He's a street-level hero, just like Luke Cage or Daredevil or Jessica Jones or Iron Fist. It's where he belongs, but he's one of the biggest fish in that pond. Because, yeah, he's got super strength. Who doesn't? In some way, shape, or form. Maybe Punisher. And Punisher's, like, jacked anyways for a human. But he's a street-level hero that gets put into extraordinary scenarios and comes out of it alive. He's a survivor and an underdog, and that's why people like him. So this sudden shot to the top, where he's an egotist, he's like, I want to be an Avenger, I want to be an Avenger. No, what we liked about him in Civil War, I'm sorry, apologize, Winter Soldier 2, was that he was a young kid underdog who was kind of naive. He wasn't big on himself. He wasn't the egotist of like, oh, I'm good enough to be an Avenger. I'm too good for this little time hero shit. It's that he was there and he was a fan. It was like seeing us get to go into the movie with powers, and he got to run his mouth a mile a minute, which Deadpool's proven works, but Spider-Man is a much friendlier version of that. And we don't have Hawkeye cracking wise because, believe it or not, he's a huge source of comedy and pain in Cap's ass in the comics. And the Avengers is missing that on its own. To the point where we had to fill it with Thor because everyone fucking hates Thor. Even though he might legitimately be one of the strongest, he's definitely in the top 3 strongest Avengers. Personally, I give it to Vision and then Hulk and then Thor, but I don't know. It's just such a pain in the ass. Like, and it involves this whole caveat of conversations about Marvel stuff. And I'm not going to get another chance for a couple of weeks because next week we're taking a break to do the Concessionaires May Die. America Young, who I can't expect you to know, but she was a games news person in my life at one point, and like yeah, she's beautiful, but she made such an impact on me as a host and everything. I wanted to keep seeing what she was up to, so I followed her on social media, and it's cool to see her come through. And she put together a movie with some ladies called The Concessionaires May Die, and it's a thing we're gonna watch next week on Rabbit/Camerai. I went ahead and bought it on Amazon so that I could share with you through Rabbit, and it'll be a good time. I don't expect her to show up or anything. I'm just saying that's what we're doing. And then next week will be Black Panther because it comes out on the 8th and I show on the 6th. So if you're not tired of watching it by then, come on by. I couldn't find another Marvel movie that like really fit the bill to be here next week. So that's what we're doing. And this is barely one. It's still a great movie. It's very entertaining. It's well put together. I'll give you that. And Michael Keaton does a great job as the Vulture. I don't know a lot about the Vulture. I know more about the Shocker than this movie does, apparently. Though I didn't want him to run around in fishnet either. That was kind of a weird thing. But it made me very concerned about the Sinister Six, because originally that was the concept that they were going through with the first 2 Amazing Spider-Mans, and we never got there for the payoff of Amazing Spider-Man 2, because it was a setup movie, which is why it didn't do as good, because people didn't recognize it, that it was a launch pad for the next movie that we're never going to get, because we got this. So I'm disappointed that this exists for that reason, but I'm so happy Tom Holland got involved. I'm so happy that we got a Spider-Man movie that people typically accept as Spider-Man. I'm just so disappointed that why can't we just do it right and do what makes Spider-Man worth knowing about? Tony doesn't have to be involved. This mentor bullshit. And that's the one thing, and that's the other thing I gotta mention too, is that it's the one thing that, and I'm openly not a Tony Stark fan, but it's the one thing that Captain America and Iron Man ever agreed on, was that kids should not be heroes. So it's real disappointing to see that go on here, and then him being misused for Civil War in the first place. Because his role in Civil War was monumental and critical, and it should be represented here as well, especially since should be the Iron Spider phase. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. I don't know if they're making up their own rules. It's just not what we wanted. So with that depressing note, we're gonna go into the show notes for the movie, and we'll walk through this, and I'll try to point out what parts make it Iron Man 4, and which parts make it Spider-Man, as best to my abilities, and I'm sure it'll come across. What is actually probably one of the most interesting settings for a movie to start in: garbage cleanup after New York. No one ever thinks about, like, a video game they play or a storyline they watch, what happens to all the collateral damage afterwards? Who cleans that up? There are privatized companies that go through and clean up wreckage and debris like this, and this was mad payday for them. Because not only do they get paid to clear out the stuff, but they get to hang on to it and then sell it or use it as need be. And there's all this Chitauri stuff everywhere that people are going to want for weapons and technology and everything. And of course, the government goes, well, we can't have that out in the open market. We've got to take control of it. But they do a shitty job of it because lots of people, not just these guys, manage to get their hands on some anyways, and then are selling it and replicating it. And they didn't even get it cleaned up fast enough. What would have made more sense is to make quick on-the-spot government deals with the private companies so that they could cover more ground and have them be supervised by agents to return the debris to government facilities so that they weren't hanging on to it, but they would be heavily compensated. Because we can do stuff like that, and for an instant like New York, we needed it. Because New York has so many fucking people in it. They're guaranteed there are kids that were getting in there and ripping off pieces of Chitauri stuff just to hang on to for toys. Essentially. Not to mention gangbangers, etc. New York would have been a dangerous freaking place after the incident. I'm just saying. Like, you get mugged, but you get mugged with Chitauri weapons and such. So of course the Stark Tower is like in ruins at that point, and the idea is that they're gonna be changing facilities, and I think they've mentioned that in several other movies at this point. In the comics, I'll try not to go on about the comics too much, but in the comics, I think they ended up shifting between Stark Tower and the Avengers Mansion. I think it was actually Avengers Tower and the Avengers Mansion, because Tony had a mansion in upstate New York or outside New York or in New York, wherever it was, as well as his places out west in California, because it's Tony Stark and he's rich. Even when he was broke and he couldn't afford the Avengers anymore, he still had like 3 huge buildings in his name that were there for the purposes of the company. Stupid drunk. Tony's such a dickbag. That's just gonna come out from time to time. We'll move past it. So of course the mystery agency rolls in, fucks over the Vulture's crew, and they decide that they're not gonna take it, which is nice and all. And then 8 years go by and they've managed to develop this cool suit for him, and some weaponry out of the stuff that they had, and apparently they've managed to get their hands on more, because there's no way they did everything they did with just that one bit of salvage. And he's of course using the suit to rob things and the tech, and he does it in quite an ingenious way. Because he has a suit, he's able to fly where people aren't going to notice or look for that sort of thing. And then he has a interdimensional phase shifter or something like that, that allows him to literally walk through walls. Now, I don't know what happens when he hits an electrical line or anything like that, but whatever. So it lets him walk through the wall of the safe, or the truck, or the boat, or whatever it is, and then he goes in, grabs whatever he wants out of there, and then he leaves. A vulture in the night, if you will. And I'm sure that was a Stan Lee thing at some point that he wrote, because I've heard it multiple times. For whatever reason, and the storyline's all messed up, or the timeline's all messed up by that point. We shoot to Berlin with Tom Holland or Peter Parker doing little video diaries, like he's a damn vlogger. He can't show these to anybody because he can't out himself as Spider-Man. He can't he's filming secret stuff. He's filming all kinds of crap that it'd be dumb to get out. But it's a cool perspective to see. He even webs up a camera or a phone or something somewhere during the fight with Captain America and Ant-Man and stuff. And we had to see another angle of the scene where Paul Rudd as Ant-Man grows big and grabs Rhodey, and he's got him out like this, the other arm, and he's like, oh, he's big now, I gotta go. And it was just a cool thing to see, and of course he's got to go back and recover it. Um, oh man. And like we get to see Tony give him the suit, which is disappointing because like I'm not looking forward to Peter's skills as a tailor per se, but that was part of his identity, that he started from nothing, just having the spider bite, and he worked his ass off to make his web shooters and to make his suits and make them better every time he made them, and come up with the lenses for that he comes up with, and the webbing on his suit is actually supposed to be designed to help keep the suit together like it does in this movie. So that was kind of an impressive nod, but it's just too high tech. Because it's supposed to be cloth with like a tight fiber to it or something. The way he puts the suit together is supposed to help show his genius, and like we miss out on that in this movie. There's actually a lot there that we could have had with similar things to that, where Tony takes the credit for making Spider-Man who he is. And I think he even makes fun of him in Civil War, like a little bit. He's like, "Is this you?" It's like, "Oh, it looks like it hurt, and you're swinging around doing this and that. Don't you want to be like a real hero, like an Avenger?" And it's not what Spider-Man's about. The first appearance of Spider-Man is a kid who found his powers, and then he goes to the only superhero team he knows of, the Fantastic Four, because I think they were a thing at the time. Maybe the Avengers weren't, who knows. But he was like a 15-year-old kid, and he starts scaling their building. Of course, the Fantastic Four has security that will detect this, and so they go out and they kick his ass. So he decides that he's better off on his own, and he's like that for like 10 years, until he has Captain America begging him to do a trial run as a new Avenger. And even then, he's not psyched about it. He's like, "We can give this a try. I don't want to let you down, though." And Captain America does the very fatherly, like, "I don't think you will, son." Because people forget Captain America's old. The Chris Evans version is like way too young to be Captain America, and then even Tony Stark's too young, if we're being honest. Banner's old too. They're all old fuckers by this point in the comics. We're just waiting for them to die off so that they are things of the past. That's how long it took to get comic book characters that were worth a damn in the movies. They literally were like had to become senior citizens first before anyone considered putting them on the screen in any legitimate fashion, and then they just twisted them for their own perversions. So I'm a little grumpy about it. Anyways, there is good stuff here too. So we get through all that. He gets back from Berlin. He's just, and he kind of goes through the Iron Man 3 type of thing. It's like, I just fought alongside robots and Iron Man and agents and Captain America, and he seemed to like me. So it's this crazy world that he just escapes, and he comes back to his normal life where he has to go to fucking high school and deal with fucking bullies and stupid shit and being unpopular and then not being able to get the girl that he wants because he's a loser ass. Like, and when he's smarter than any other kid in his grade almost because if I remember right, Gwen Stacy legitimately was like a girl genius as well. Which is one of the reasons why they ended up together, because they actually have so much in common, like at the time. So, I don't know. But we do see him get into a girl, and for whatever reason, I don't have any problem with this. A lot of people seem to give a shit, though, that she was black. Who gives a fuck? Yeah, that's great. She's cute. Let's move on. I don't have anything else to say about it. It doesn't add anything to the story to me that she's black or white. But we're the one thing that is important, that she's not Gwen Stacy, and she's not Mary Jane. Even though we have that kind of coy reference to MJ later, by Michelle, who I actually was into. I really like her as a character, and yeah, she's cute, but like that's the girl I wanted to hang out with, and I would have wanted to hang out with in high school. Like, what are you up to? What are you doing? What's going on in your brain? What you doodling? Anyways, So he's back in high school and he's into a girl. So it's this very normal, mundane life he's got to face. But then he just goes to like street level patrolling. He's like saving bikes for people. He helps an old lady cross the street because that's a Spider-Man thing to do. He he has the misunderstanding with the dude breaking into his own car. And then, like, everyone's mad at him. He's just like, I'm sorry. Where, like, you wouldn't see, like, a lot of these other heroes take fault. But, of course, like, he's young enough that he's, what's the word? Overly proactive, whatever that is. Where Captain America probably would have stood next to him and been like, are you sure you want to do that, citizen? Some stupid shit like that. Spider-Man webs first, cracks jokes, and then checks the facts later. Impatient, maybe. And it shows like what a young kid he is. And so then he has to cop up to it, but he takes responsibility for it to the point of like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, like, instead of just webbing them right out of there. Now he doesn't like go to the police and be like, hey, I did this thing, put me in jail, of course, because he's got better things to do. And just the amount of money that they're wasting on backpacks, and whatever asshole is like, he's putting his backpack in stupid places. Let's just be honest. He should be putting it on rooftops. But they're taking all his stuff out of his bag and stealing the bag. The textbooks alone are worth 4 times at least what that bag's worth. And if I was Aunt May, I wouldn't even give him bags. I'd give him paper bags and be like, I'll buy you a new one on this date. Until then, you're going to make do with the bag I gave you. That bag's gone. Here's some paper bags from the grocery store. Because he was quite irresponsible with that. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about a kid who isn't even responsible enough to, like, put his it's not that he's not smart enough either to put his backpack somewhere where people can't steal it. But he wants to go on Avengers missions. Ugh. So, but of course he's doing his stuff. And he calls Happy about the mission. Just checking in with Happy. That he has that relationship with Iron Man, like, kind of irritates me. Even when he is a new Avenger in the comics, and like he's on the team with Iron Man as an equal. Like, they never had that kind of friendly relationship. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm here, you're here. Who's putting coffee grounds in the the sink, the disposal, whatever it is. I thought it was funny. He had more of a relationship with Wolverine because Wolverine wanted to bang Mary Jane because Wolverine. And for Tony not to be the womanizing character in that scenario was amazing. Let's see. See, that's the movie I want. I want the movie where Wolverine wants to bang Spider-Man's girlfriend. Or fiance or wife at that point. I think they were married. Oh, that poor girl. Can't imagine that life. But yeah, so like, that's where it becomes an Iron Man movie for me, is where he's checking with Happy. He's like, can I be an Avenger again? And he's not appreciating what he has in both him and the suit that he's given by Tony, and his abilities. Like, it really it's disappointing. It's like, I'm not mad, Spidey, I'm disappointed. But he does come across a robbery using space tools, and the guys are using, like, it's actually a really cool way to do the heist. They're like cutting open the ATM, and then they're grav lifting out the ATM piece, because it's easy. It takes about 30 seconds to do the whole robbery. And honestly, if you're going to hit something like an ATM, is not a bad way to go, but you're going to be on camera, you're going to face time, because they're probably going to track you down one way or the other, and they probably know which bills are went into that ATM, so you can't really spend the money, because eventually the money will come through their centuries. It's just what it is. Don't steal. So he just sneaks in there, and we have a very cool Spider-Man moment, or a young Spider-Man moment anywhere, where he's like positioning himself, trying to look cool, and he's just like, hey, what you guys doing? It's like, what are you doing robbing an ATM? You're rich. Very Spider-Man like quips, and I really love it. So watching him fight these not Avengers in this place really reminded me of I can't remember their name now. It was like the crew. Maybe that's what it is. Marvel, the Crew, the Wrecking Crew. That's what it was. That's what it reminded me of, because they had like blessed weapons. Like their leader had a crowbar that was blessed by the gods, to the point where like he essentially had where Thor was like the god of lightning, and the hammer kind of helped facilitate that. Though the crowbar was like a weapon of the god of stone or something, so he could actually cause quakes with it if he hit the ground hard enough. And there was like another guy with a shovel, another guy with a bucket helmet, and there's like different, and a guy with a chain or something. Like it was a really interesting thing. I really want to see them do that for a movie. Let's talk about Marvel shit all night. Why not? But the Spider-Man, I'm sorry, the fight where the cutter gets out of control because they try to cut Spidey in half, but they fuck it up and it goes across the entire street. And then they get away because Spidey is a good hero. He's an actual hero, and he prioritizes the citizens that are in danger. So he goes and saves the people, and the bad guys get away. And he even tries to report it up to Stark because, honestly, I think there's a point in the comics where like he actually gets that hotline to hire up superheroes. Like that's like, this is a little above my pay grade. I can try to slow him down for you, but I don't like. I think I could really use some backup here. And then you have like nice crossovers and stuff. And that'd be things where like Captain America or Iron Man rolls in for a few issues. But so let's see. Oh yeah, so he loses him. Peter calls Happy. Happy dismisses him because he's not even listening to half of their shit. So like, for what Happy listens to when Peter calls and like leaves messages or texts or whatever, Iron Man has like a lot of information that he probably shouldn't have. I'm just saying. Like, granted, like they're probably listening in on his suit or whatever, but baby monitor protocol, yeah. I don't know. I have problems with that whole thing. He didn't need that. He doesn't need to be babysat. He doesn't need mentoring or whatever. But he gets home and he crawls in and like he does all this careful thing to make sure that May doesn't see that he's Spider-Man. And then the whole time like Ned's just sitting on his bed. And Peter's outed to his best friend. It was so funny. It was such a good scene. And he drops his Lego Death Star. That's a lot of pieces. It's a crazy amount of stuff for a Lego set, even though it's not nearly to scale. But for him to drop that was huge. You got to be a Lego fan to understand, but still. So, and we go through, and like he ends up having dinner with May, and I think it's just a feature to like show like how interconnected his world is, and that he's constantly having to hide his stuff from the people who love him, and especially with May being so protective of him, which he absolutely doesn't have to be because he's Spider-Man. That doesn't mean that he's invincible, but it does mean that like she doesn't have to be nearly as worried about him as or in the same way as she did Peter Parker, without powers. Now she has to worry about him going up against villains and stuff. That's what she has to worry about. Which is why I think her reaction's somewhat appropriate later on. Even though it's way too early for that shit to have happened. But then he still has to go back to school. That's the thing. That's the thing that makes Spider-Man, is that he had to be Peter Parker. He had to finish high school. He had to go to college. He had to do these things because they were expected of him, and they honestly should have bettered his life to actually go through that. To be a high school dropout, especially as smart as he is, and not do anything with it in a normal life, because then you can't pay your rent or anything like that, and it's a mess. Or he'd be working some shitty, unsatisfying job while he's waiting to be Spider-Man again. Using his real life skills, he could actually like work under someone like Dr. Octavius, and better his skills and actually improve himself as a superhero. Maybe even duplicate the process. Not that you need to do that. We don't need lots of Spider-Mans running around or anything. A wink. For those of you who don't get that, Spider-Man has had several doppelgangers, including a man spider. His DNA was rewritten so that the web shooters actually became part of him. There was another girl who was bit by the same spider on the same day. named Silk, and they have kind of an interesting relationship between the two of them. But she deserves her own miniseries at least. There was one more thing I wanted to say. Oh, there's all the Venom symbiote or Venom type symbiotes or symbiotes, whatever, that happen as well. There's plenty of Spider-Man going on. There's the Spider-Women, and God, if Alison Brie doesn't become Jessica Drew Spider-Woman, I'm going to lose my mind. But my point is that there's the Spider clones for the Iron Spiders. That's what I was shooting it for. There's lots of extra Spider-Man there. Like, even he was declared dead at one point, and they were pretending to be him. I think it was right after Tony tried to kill him. Tony the Murderer. So, kids are dicks. I think that's what I'm getting at there. Like, the high school thing is just a big pain in the ass. He's just biding time till it's over. But Ned has to live in that world full time and then do this thing there where Peter Parker's always Spider-Man. He's just can only act on being Spider-Man every so often. So like Ned promises Spider-Man for Peter, like that gets him to this party, and like they try to mingle, it fails, and of course Peter succumbs to this peer pressure because he's a naive little shit kid. And yeah, Tina, I've got Steam, yeah, but like we're talking movies right now. So oh fuck, threw me off. So he's actually succumbing to this peer pressure because he's a naive little kid, and he suits up and he notices this arms deal out in the open because they're using big fucking alien laser weapons and shit. And he goes and investigates because that's what Spider-Man does, and he interferes on behalf of the citizens. And he gets in a little bit over his head. He ends up in this weird car chase where it's not really him chasing the car at first. It's him being dragged behind or whatnot. So he gets up running through suburbia because there's this funny bit. There's this long running joke of like, what would Spider-Man do if he was bit by a spider in like Nebraska, where there are no skyscrapers to swing off of. It's like he either get good at running and jumping or whatever. People with interesting questions, yes. I do, for the record, I do have a Discord. I don't know why we're getting these questions today. I'm obviously talking about movies tonight. That's fine. I do need to work at getting more publicly available. If you go to hbkb.dns.org/media.php, there might be a link to it there. Otherwise, yeah, and this is nice to snowball Mike. This is a good time. I'm gonna get back to Spider-Man though, if that's all right. But again, this is another point where Spider-Man shows through the mess. But Vulture intervenes, and Vulture, for whatever reason, is a big Spider-Man villain. But he's like Kingpin level, like he's a boss type. He's got some tech behind him, or Kingpin's got some little bit of extra strength. So like he can compete with Spider-Man with the tech, but he's not necessarily like a huge global threat or anything. He's really an arms dealer or a thief when it comes down to it. And he gets dropped in the river, and I don't think if he wasn't covered in a blanket or whatever it was when he got dropped in the river, I don't think it would be a problem. But he does kind of get his ass beat there. You're not wrong. So and then Iron Man pulls him out. Like, I think he would have got out on himself just fine. But then we have this Iron Man interference again. And this is where part of what like makes me feel like it's Iron Man 4 again. And on top of that, like, he's too busy to come himself. He sends the robot with his brain control glasses. So I don't think it was that important. I think he would have been fine. But of course, he's lost the villains again, so now he has to do detective work. And this is another thing where, like, it shows off Peter Parker for sure. It shows off, like, how smart he is, that he can do detective work, that he can sort things out, and because he still has, like, a piece of the weapon or whatever that tried to blow him up. So he very stupidly, like, hits it with a hammer a bunch to dislodge it, but he's got the power source or whatnot. He tries to investigate it during shop class or whatever. That was amazingly stupid looking scene. It's like, oh, this alien device thing I found. Let me just put it in this vice clamp and hit it with the table saw to see if I can cut it in half or not. But anything that's not Tony lecturing Peter about superheroing makes me happy. It is kind of odd that, like, the Vulture's gang shows up at the school. It seems like a really offbeat position to take. Like, it's like, yeah, let's have these guys just wander about the school, especially in this day and age when we're modernizing Spidey to this day and age with all the school shootings and all these weird procedures. Like, I don't understand why they would do that. Like, why that would be a thing that happens. And of course, like, they're running their mouths and everything, and Peter recognizes them, and they're doing, like, generally just a bad job enough where, like, back at the workshop or whatever where they work out of, they're running their mouths, and Vulture shows up and he's all pissed off, and we got that one, I guess it's the original Shocker. Oh, don't get me started on Venom. Give me a second, I'll circle back to Venom, but let me finish this thought here. Because this is actually one of the really cool things that makes a Spider-Man movie, like, from the villain side, is that Vulture has a mouth off, and the Goon basically challenges him to kill him. It's like, oh, all the stuff I know, you don't want me out there. It's like, well, what is his other option? Because you're not staying here, so, and you're not going out there, so you're dead. And maybe he didn't mean to kill him, which was fucking funny. Michael Keaton is very hilarious in, like, some very unobvious ways. He's really a master of body language, I think, when it comes down to it, because he's like, this isn't the grav gun. Right after he burnt his minion to a crisp. So it was a really funny moment. It was a really good thing. Good thing to see, to actually show it be a thing. Now, okay, we'll come back to the field trip. Let me take a small break and talk about Venom. Venom, real quick. Oh my friggin' god. I don't know if you've seen the trailers for Venom, but that's an unreleasable fucking movie. They should not be releasing Venom. Honestly, based off that trailer, they should pack the damn thing up and throw it in a vault. It's not worth releasing, because no one's gonna go see that shit. Anyone who does go see that is gonna be pissed. We have, like, there's the one cool shot of Venom, like, and I still feel like they even did him wrong, like the way his teeth come over his head. Oh man, they're presenting him as, like, an anti-hero right off the bat. Flash was a villain with it. Oh god, Spider-Man 3 was good. I don't think it was bad, but saying it was good is a strong statement, Tina. I'm just saying. Amazing Spider-Man or Spider-Man 2? No, Spider-Man 2 was better than Spider-Man 3. The Amazing series was probably a little bit better than the original. But that Venom movie's just, it's trash from start to finish. Flash is a mean guy. We're completely circumventing the fact that the symbiote attaching to Spider-Man and getting the powers in the first place. You have to have Dark Suit Spider-Man to set up Venom. So really what we should have is a Spider-Man movie where at the end he attaches with the symbiote, and then you can even put in some filler story in between or do a mini episode or something, and then have a Venom movie launch. Venom needs a new movie now because it's not going to make it. And because they're fucking up this Venom movie, we're not going to get my Carnage movie, and we're not going to get my Toxin movie, because I love the symbiotes. I think it's one of the best things that came out of Spider-Man. Having Spider-Man versus Venom, even though it's a Marvel mirror, like the two people with similar powers, the Venom symbiote circumvents that. The Flash personality helps accentuate, like, the hatred of Peter Parker and Spider-Man in general. It passes the knowledge of Spider-Man's identity to the Venom symbiote so that they can hunt him in real life. He gets around Spidey's super sense. There's so many things about Venom that make it a great thing. And then when Venom finally starts to come around to the idea that maybe he doesn't have to kill Spider-Man all the time, he's like one of the best anti-heroes. We'll get trash versions of the others. Like, the pacing's awful. Sony does not know what the fuck it's doing with this franchise. We went through 5 subpar movies. They weren't shitty, but they could have been here, and we got them here. Even Spider-Man Homecoming is only here. It should be here. Spider-Man should be here. This is the marker for Spider-Man, and we're only, at best, we're getting halfway. And yeah, because they're going to rush through them, because they think this is a dying industry. These comic book movies are here to stand. It doesn't matter who you have as the actors. It doesn't matter. I take that back. As long as you have a certain quality of actor for these movies, these will stick around. These will be here for a long, long time. I agree with you. The Venom video game has the potential to be good, and it should be, because that'll be awesome. And honestly, they should have a thing in there where, like, you can turn the symbiote on and off to stealth through the crowd. That should be a fucking born mechanic for those games. But I still think they messed up, because you have to have Spider-Man in order to set up Venom correctly. It doesn't make any sense to go directly to Venom. And then if they actually go straight to Carnage at the end of Venom, and they don't do multiple movies or have him involved in Spider-Man movies going forward, it's wrong. It's the birth rate's insane. If there's a new symbiote every fucking movie, it's off the chain. DC universe is fucked. Like, the Marvel universe is broken, but the DC universe is horrible, and I don't know where they're gonna go with Catwoman, because I bet where they're going to go with Catwoman is they're not going to do a Catwoman movie. You won't get that one. Not after Halle Berry's version. What you're going to get is a, what are they called? The Renegade? The Coven? Whatever it is. The Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, Catwoman. You're going to get them, because they're the anti-Birds of Prey. Black Cat's Marvel. We're going to see They've already announced Black Cat's going to be involved in Venom. She should have her own fucking movie as far as I'm concerned. Or at least a miniseries. I think there's a lot of value in these miniseries if you keep it to a miniseries. Just do like 6 episodes, maybe 12. You don't have to go to a full 24 like we do here in America. You can do a miniseries. There was talk about Miles Morales getting his own movie, but staying in the MCU, and I don't understand how they're going to do that. Because again, in the comics, there's already enough Spider-Man, but whatever. I do need to circle back to this movie, but there's some good points in there, and yeah, Black Cat should be a little thick. There's nothing wrong with that. And if people say they don't like thick, remind them how good a milkshake is. That's my advice, because it can work. And people are dumb. I don't know about Kid Spider-Man. That's so funny. Okay, so like on the field trip, it was weird to take Spider-Man to Washington, D.C. It was even weirder that, like, the villain's daughter was involved in a trip from New York to D.C. with a select version of kids that are from New York when Spider-Man's from New York. So it's like, it's just super suspicious the whole way. And then on top of that, we've got Ned hacking the suit. And granted, in the comics, when Peter was a kid with being Spider-Man, he didn't have the ability to hack the suit because no one had that ability to make that sort of technology. And nowadays, like, Peter should be able to do it. Peter should know enough computers to do it on his own. He doesn't need a guy in the van. He's his own guy in the van. Though it's cool to kind of see Ned take it up at this earliest stage in Spider-Man's movie career in the MCU. So they managed to unlock the training wheels protocol, which opens up all these crazy procedures in the suit, which proves that Tony is out of ideas for his own suit. But he's obsessive compulsive in the way that he has to keep making suits because he just has that urgency. So instead of making Iron Man suits, he's now making Spider-Man suits, and he's putting bullshit taser webs and ricochet nonsense. There's a lot of stuff in there that's just useless. Like 500 combinations, you probably only need like 4 of them. I will admit, rapid fire, taser webs, and maybe even the web grenade were all kind of cool ideas. But standard webs, that's what you need. In the comics and like the cartoons and stuff, he varied the way he shot by like the positions of his fingers on the pad. So like there was a lot of like quick reaction forming there, and that was impressive too. Like there's a lot of Spider-Man that gets lost in this movie because it's not him making it on his own merits. Let's see. So we've got the sting operation where he's using Lady Jarvis. That's what I called it, because it's not Gal Friday. It's its own thing. I think he calls her Karen eventually. He did not need an AI assistant. He didn't need a little drone following him. That was all bullshit Stark shit. So anything that's that, it means that it's credit to Stark instead of Peter Parker. And that's been my biggest peeve in these movies. I think I've said it before in this video, but that's what I don't like about this, is that Peter Parker's never been given enough credit. We finally have a movie where he starts to get that, and then Iron Man steals it all. In this movie, Iron Man did not die. In Infinity War, I could hope. I did hear a spoiler that someone does die in that movie, in particular, and that will be a little bit of a heart wrencher. And I'll say it if both of you want me to, because there's only 2 people in chat that I can see anyways. But I don't want to spoil it for you without your permission. So he's using Lady Jarvis to track down the GPS of these arms dealers, which is dumb that it can even do that. And he engages Vulture again, who manages to trap him in the transport, which was the easiest way to deal with Spider-Man. Is to just trap him in a thing he can't get out of, because he's only so strong. His webbing isn't like that, and Vulture has like alien tech that lets him pass through walls. So like, why not? Like, just trap him, move on to the next job. Granted, they needed those boxes because they've got like this weird budget and risk assessment thing going on. They've got a badass business analysis working for that crew. Because they're like, well, this is our burn through rate. This is how long we can sustain. We have to get this next job. But if you get this other job, like at this other time, we'll be set for life. I thought it was such a funny line. Like, they get a little bit of Stark tech, they'll be set up for life. Despite all the alien tech that they've picked up over the years, which people can't replicate for the most part. Oh man. Okay, so he spends his time in the facility that he's locked in, befriending the new suit lady. He runs training for his suit, and we realize only 37 minutes have gone by because Peter Parker basically has ADD. Or ADHD, or any number of combinations of letters that you want to say, until he finally figures out how to hack the door with the TI-83. Like, I have one somewhere. I'd pull it out if I knew exactly where it was. So it's really cool to see him like break through the facility using his brain, because it has no credit to the suit. It's actually a really good metaphor for what the movie's actually trying to tell you later on, is that he didn't need the suit to actually break out of there. It was actually his ability that let it do it. But the movie fights that same message the whole time because he's leaning into the Stark tech so much. So he finally breaks out of the facility. The debate team wins the competition without him, because fuck Peter, basically. And then they go to the Washington Monument, and there's this fun little line about it being built by slaves, and at the time, that's probably what happened. So everyone's like, oh, we'll just move past that. Which is honestly what you do. You recognize it, you know it's a horrible thing, but you can't change the past, so you move on. It's kind of funny that, like, I really never thought of it as a building, though. Like, I always thought of it as a statue, a monument. But it's actually, they put an elevator in it so you can go to the top and look out teeny tiny windows, apparently, because that's what he spends most of the time breaking through once he does it. And he climbs it in like the slowest friggin' manner possible. He just does a lot of this. And granted, it's spider crawls. But like, you'd think he'd be able to web up, or he'd be able to double web and then slingshot. Especially with all the weird combinations on the suit. Like, you'd think he'd have stretchy web or something like that. But he gets the little drone or whatever to unnecessarily assess the monument. I did think it was interesting that, like, they have the army show up to shoot at him. Like, that's helpful at all. Like, so I just don't understand what the process of the call happened there is. Like, they get word that there's an emergency at the Washington Monument. No ambulance or anything shows up. No firefighters. But a helicopter with people with guns in it shows up. And then they start targeting the guy who's known for being a superhero. Well, at least in New York. He's somewhat infamous at this point. So, on top of that, I know that's what causes the whole incident in the first place, is the little thing in Ned's backpack goes off. Which was really a funny series of events, because he's like, and then every time he goes to say something, someone else cuts him off because what they have to say is more important, which is typically how conversations go half the time. It's kind of how I have to roll because I'm doing this show. But, sorry, Tina, I keep laughing at your last post there. I don't think he's dead. I really don't. I'll be surprised, but I think he's safe. And now we got people in other platforms, so I don't want to share that information anymore that I did manage to glean out of Infinity War. So, I don't know, but like, yeah, he gets slowed down a lot, but he manages to go through, and like, we get the elevator scene where like he's hanging on to the thing, and the elevator breaks. It's not that he lets go of it, but it breaks, and he manages to zap. And I wanted my Gwen Stacy moment. I'm going to be completely honest there. Like, when she started to fall down the elevator, I wanted her to have a problem, and we'd have a Gwen Stacy episode again. Because, quite honestly, I think it's Amazing Spider-Man 2, most powerful scene in both movies. It was fantastic. As sad as that is, it's iconic for Spider-Man. Like, I had to explain this in this chat because we did watch this in Rabbit slash Camerai. Oh, they left. That's fine. Rabbit slash Camerai. We watched this last night. Yeah. The cross, putting Spider-Man on the cross with the arms out, is an iconic Spider-Man. That's a cat. Is an iconic Spider-Man thing, and then along with the Gwen's or the "I'm gonna save you, but I might kill you" type trope, and then he's kind of got the thing with Batman where it's like occasionally people will put two things in danger, and he's got to choose or do both or whatever you want to say. Let's see here. So, I mean, like, he gets to save the girl he likes, and then, like, if it wasn't for the idiot thing in his ear going, "Kiss the girl, yeah, yeah," he might have actually done it. He might have had a Mary Jane Watson moment from the first franchise with her right there, but I don't know. It wasn't the time or the place, honestly. Get it done next time, maybe. I don't know. But they go back to New York, and they go through all this high school drama nonsense again. And Vulture vows to kill Spidey. And he manages to use Karen to track down the thing. It's really boring. It's like, oh, I don't know what to do. Computer, boop, 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 boop. Here's your answer. So it's literally Deus Ex Machina, like, that saves the day there. That he ends up tracking out where Don Glover is. I don't know what his character name is in the movie, but it's Don Glover, not Don Glover, Don Glover. And he has some really, like, good lines. Like, you got to get better about this part of the job. But he gets the information out of him because the guy doesn't want the alien weapons in his neighborhood either, which kind of shows you what the atmosphere of New York is. But he does leave him with like, hey, that's going to dissolve in 2 hours. When the joke for me was always, about an hour. What? It'll dissolve in about an hour. There's a pretty great scene in the New Avengers where Iron Man puts Electro in a electromagnetic bubble, and then they have a conversation about how Spider-Man used to deal with him. He's like, oh, I'd web up my hands and just pound on him until he talks. He's like, okay, do me up. And Luke Cage, big old Luke Cage, gets his hands webbed up and goes, open the bubble. And then Electro faints. And he's like, okay, well, I guess he's done. Get these off me. He's like, about an hour. What? Dissolve in about an hour. It's like, oh, no, you didn't. I like Luke Cage. Luke Cage is good. So, where are we at? But he gets the information. He goes to the ferry to actually find the weapons dealers and stuff. Of course, the FBI is involved because why aren't they? So they're there as collateral damage, really. Because what were they going to do? If Spider-Man hadn't shown up, what were they going to do against Vulture's gang with the alien tech when they show up with little 9mm handguns? That was a army roll in and take the boat moment. Fuck the FBI in that moment. Hopefully that is going to be put on a list, but I said it. They were ill-equipped, and they should have used Spider-Man as a resource, honestly. And so with the whole thing, like with the ferry being cut in half and Spider-Man trying to web it back together of all things, and then Vulture gets away because he's got wings. Hell, he just flew out of there. Tony berates him and like dresses him down and takes away his suit. And he says this very eerie line of like, it's not, if you're nothing without the suit, you shouldn't have it. It's bullshit. It's not, but I agree with the line. I hate Tony so much, but, and his problem with it is like, if Spider-Man dies, it's on him. He's responsible for Peter's life, where Peter's responsible for other people's lives that he's trying to save if he fails. So fuck you, Tony. That's all I'm saying. But he takes the suit home with him and gives him like a t-shirt or something. It's like, I survived my trip to New York type thing. So at home he talks to May, and he kind of goes back into this high school life, but without the Stark internship. And it's a back to basics thing, and he's going through school and everything, and he even gets his little cojones up to ask the girl he likes to homecoming, and then he gets a suit, and she gets a nice dress, and they goes to her house to meet her parents, and lots of teenage bullshit drama stuff that, like, I couldn't care less about at this point in the movie. It's like, I wanted Spider-Man. I like that he's Peter Parkering just a little bit, but I want him to still be Spider-Man. And like, I realized that it doesn't take him out of being Spider-Man to do these things, but it was too much normalcy all in a row. Because the idea of Spider-Man being interesting is that he balances between Peter Parker and Spider-Man, and it's, you take away the balance, you shove it all the way to one side, it gets boring. Like, if I get all Spider-Man, I want some more Peter. If I get all Peter, I want some Spider-Man. But he finally bucks up after having to like have a very nice civil conversation with a guy who's tried to kill him multiple times, as he's about to go on a date with the guy's daughter. Really awkward situation. That's the only thing that really got me through, was that we got to that moment, and Michael Keaton again is a master of body language. He really sells the part of the Vulture right there, where he's going on and on about like taking care of his daughter and what a priority that is, and everything. But he's being slightly terrifying to this kid that's in his back seat, but they both know what each other are, so there's two layers of conversation happening at the same time. But of course, once he gets to the dance, he does the Peter Parker thing, and he puts himself on the back burner. He goes, I can't do this thing I want to do right now. I've got to go do the thing I'm meant to do for people who can't do it for themselves. Like, if I stay here and dance, who knows what he'll get away with. Oh, fuck. I blame you, Kat. So fuck it. He runs out on the girl he likes, which is a shame because Liz got all dressed up. She was excited. She finally had a good guy that she was after. Until he runs out, because fuck him at that point. Like, really, honestly, like, I get what he had to go do objectively from outside the situation, but for her, like, ladies, if a guy runs out on you in the middle of something like that, yeah, maybe listen to what he has to say afterwards, but let that ruin his chances. I'm just saying. So Shocker punches him in the face when he walks out. I thought that was so funny. It's just that ambush there. But he does manage just to get the best of him. He has Ned call Happy, who hangs up on him because he's like, not only do I now we got 2 kids calling me. Happy's funny. He's also a dick, but he's funny. Spidey manages to get to the Vulture, who at this point has like the high altitude gadgetry or whatnot, and he's after the Tony Stark plane with all the Stark tech on it. I don't know what he was after, like, really, because if it's just Stark tech, who gives a crap? Because he pulls out an Iron Man mask and throws it to the side, so it's obviously not what he's after. The alien tech is like kind of been their bread and butter, but I don't think Tony like has any of that at this point. This is right after New York. No, it's not, because it's 8 years after New York. That's right. Because in theory, that's how long it took to Civil War. So I don't know. Like, I just don't know what he's after. I don't know what's going on in the Michael Keaton brain there. Where are we at? What are my notes here for this? Because obviously, like, they both get in through the thing. They have a fight. And it's all about Spider-Man trying to do the right thing. It's not him trying to stop some guy he's mad at. He's not trying to kill him. He's just trying to stop him from doing the crime without him dying without either of them dying in the process. So, like, once, like, the plane gets critically damaged, Spider-Man, like, gets on top and actually webs the flaps and stuff to try to steer it into, like, the ground. And almost, thank goodness, nobody was actually piloting the stupid thing, because they would have got killed in the process with Vulture wrecking everything. It's really weird. It's very anticlimactic. It's a really cool suit that he has, and it has some very specific functions on it. Like, it has a scissors attack, but I don't know what to do to make that more exciting, more memorable. It's like, it really, in my head, it goes by, and then Michael Keaton's tied to a box on a beach, probably on Staten Island. And I really don't have any notes there that, like, really say anything there, other than, like, Peter notices that his suit is leaking and is going to explode, so he tries to remove him from it. And that's, like, again, part of what makes him a hero, like, instead of, like, a murderer like Tony, like, who's like, oh, I'm just going to fly places and shoot missiles at people. Back into the school stuff, again, like, I want that balance. I do enjoy a balance. Liz is leaving school because her dad's a fucking criminal who went to prison, so her and her mom gotta, like, move shop somewhere else that they can do a little better at. Plus, she probably doesn't want to see Peter anymore. Not that she necessarily figured out that he's Spider-Man, because Vulture surprisingly has kept that tight, because it's not good that he just spills it out there for free. That's information, valuable information. He should sell it, which is what the end credit scene's about, where, like, the other guy's like, oh, I think you know. But at school, for the debate team, everything, Michelle takes over. It's kind of her moment, and, like, she actually, like, is getting friends. It's such a subtle storyline that they weave in for her, and I'm super happy about it because I'm into Michelle. I think she's a cool character. Again, like, probably the girl I'd want to hang out with in school. To Happy's own credit, he says that he's been standing in that bathroom way too long, or long enough for it to be awkward, I think was the line. And sometimes I can't imagine Happy's job. It's like, what is Happy's job where it includes him having to stay in a high school bathroom far too long? Jeez. But he takes Peter to the Avenger complex to show him around and meet Tony again. And then Tony's, like, ready to welcome him back to the fold. And we see the heart of Spider-Man. We see the spirit of Spider-Man, where he actually turns down the nice new suit or whatever, to the chance to be an Avenger, and he goes, and he uses some stupid fucking words that Tony gave him earlier in the movie. But the point is that he's going to stick at home and he's going to defend his home, New York, Manhattan, really, and that's where he's going to be. Or I guess Brooklyn? No, Captain America's Brooklyn. He's from Queens, that's right. I always forget. He spends some time in Manhattan because it's New York, you got it, right? I think that's like when they go to college or something, they end up in Manhattan. I could be wrong. But Tony gives him a little pep talk. Again, stupid promises about being an Avenger. So happy Peter turns him down because it's not what I want out of Spider-Man. Yes, he should have been involved in Infinity War, and I'm sure he is. And he's a kid out of his depth. And if he dies, I'm sorry, but I really don't expect that. And I don't expect them just to kill off people because their contracts are up. It's not how this franchise should work. They should just be replacing actors as necessary, and we should be okay with that as an audience because the breadth of the stories is so long that we can't get caught up on semantics of like, that's not my Captain America. Let Evans go direct things. Let him direct one of the Avenger movies coming up. Honestly, let him move to being a director for these movies and then put other people in that role that can do the job. Because there's actors out there who need the roles when these guys don't because they got set up pretty nicely at this point. But of course, when Peter gets home, digress, he has a package from Stark and he puts it on. And it's not the Iron Spider suit, but it might as well be. It's supposed to be a representation of that. But the Iron Spider suit really was like a dark representation of the state that Marvel was in as a whole. So I'm glad they didn't just do the Iron Spider suit for the movie because it meant something different in the comics that it wouldn't mean in the movies. And you got to remember too that like while Infinity War is going on, there's still Civil Warring. At this point, the Civil War is not just going to end. They fucked this up. They ruined the Civil War storyline. They broke the universe beyond repair. The only thing that's going to fix it is if Thanos really destroys the fucking universe, or Scarlet Witch reboots it at this point. They could just do an arbitrary reboot like they do in the comics. But honestly, that's what I want. Is I want Scarlet Witch to wish for. Because if you're unaware, her power is actually to alter reality, so she can very easily rewrite the reality of the planet, which she did a couple times in the comics. So if she just wishes into existence a world that's more like the comics, where like they come up on top more often than not, they had their tragedies, but they persevere through them, instead of like all of her friends being dead, that would be awesome. And then Quicksilver can come back. We can get everybody back who died in Infinity War. I don't know if she can prevent the Infinity War itself, but if they're not doing another movie as the Infinity War after this, I'm really curious because I was told that like the Skrulls are still coming. The whole point of Civil War and the initiative and everything was a Skrull invasion, so I can't tell you enough that maybe, just maybe, there's Skrulls coming around and they're fucking dumb. They're kind of a stupid excuse to have an invasion, but at the same time, I don't know. Why? I mean, if we did the Chitauri, we doing the Kree and the Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., why not do Skrulls? If I remember right, the Skrulls and the Kree are really against each other. Because it's... Who are they? It's... When Avengers Disassemble started, part of her Scarlet Witch's breakdown when she ends up writing war, she ends up centering Terra as the meeting point for two armies, and one of the armies is Kree, because that's how Hawkeye dies, is that he gets a missile or something in his backpack with his exploding arrows, and he ends up riding it up into a Kree ship to destroy it because he can't get it off of him. I mean, like, there's not time, so he sacrifices himself nobly. I want to say the other end is Skrulls, but it can't be, because the Skrulls are the ones doing the secrets at the time, and Hawkeye actually might have been a Skrull, but I don't think he was, because of the nature of everything that follows that storyline. But for the life of me, I can't remember who the other army would have been. Anyways, I guess it doesn't matter. There are places and things to go. It's almost midnight here. I've got to get some sleep. So until you see us next time, thank you so much for watching, and have a nice day from all of us here at #WeAreMovieClub. You want to see anything else we're up to, go ahead and click the annotations, and they'll take you to other channels. Thanks for watching.